Welcome to Off the Shelf Books on Tour. We're here today with the book Ghost. And don't let it fool you. It's spooky. My guest is Mr. Michael McGowan, who spent 30-odd years being an FBI agent. And he's written it all down in this book, Ghost. I'm sure it's not all there. You couldn't get it all in the pages of a book.
No, there's plenty that's not in there, Veronica.
Did you have to be talked into writing it?
No, there's a little bit of a backstory to that I can explain.
Go.
What happened was, as I was approaching retirement, I'd always thought about writing a book. It was something I was interested in doing. So I thought about trying to recapture my bizarre and interesting career. But originally, it was only intended for 4 people. It was intended for my wife and my 3 children, to thank my wife for taking care of our family while I went out and did all this stuff, and to explain to my children why they saw their dad do odd things as they were growing up and missed a lot of birthdays, games, etc. So it really was just intended, it was not intended for public consumption originally, and it was intended just for the family.
But what a lovely retrospect when your kids got older to be parents and had assumed their place in society, to see what you went through to juggle it, to make it happen. Well, I'm glad somebody talked you into publishing it.
That came about in an offhanded way. One of the attorneys that I used to work for in Philadelphia knew that I had drafted something, and he asked if he could look at it because he worked with other attorneys who represented publishers in New York. And we submitted it to a publisher, and within a month we had an offer on the table.
Wow, no rejection. Do you know how seldom that happens?
Yeah, I've been told that often.
Yes, very.
So I'm gonna quit after this one, and I'll be 1 for 1.
But it's well done. It has humor. It has skullduggery. It has persistence. And the one thing, and I admire you for it and thank you for doing it, you have a core belief and you stuck to it. No matter what came flying in your direction, no matter whether it was from the upper echelon of the FBI or the crooks that you rubbed elbows with, you maintained who you were and what you believed in, and that's not easy to do.
Well, thank you. And what I tell people, there's a chapter in the book, as you know, I believe it's the 2nd chapter, it's called Rub Some Dirt on It. And that was an expression my dad used when we were little kids. You could have a broken leg or you could lose a game. And back in those, my dad was a Irish beat cop, and he just used that expression time and time again. And I kind of adopted that philosophy going forward. Life's not fair, you're gonna be thrown challenges, and you have to get up and fight on.
Yeah, when one of the kids would yell, "Mommy, that's not fair," I just, who told you it was gonna be? You know, I started from the get-go. I haven't met Cinderella yet, have you?
No.
She doesn't live here. Of all the cases that you worked on, which one holistically was the most terrifying and the most gratifying?
Okay, I normally in my presentations, I make sure that when I talk about anything I did, I want the audience to know that there were many, many agents and staff helping me. So not any FBI agent who tells you they did something by themselves is not telling you the truth. So there was a team of us that would do this. We were almost like an athletic team where everybody had a certain function to do their job.
But that's absolutely necessary to pull off the things that you pulled off.
Absolutely. So there's a case at the end of my career. We did an investigation against Chapo Guzman and the Sinaloa cartel, which at the time was the most dangerous, powerful drug organization in the world. And I got a lot of accolades for that case, and I repeatedly tell people there were 3 other undercover agents who basically set the table for me to do my job and my role so that we were successful. So in terms of gratifying, that would probably be the best case at the end, because when I first started working undercover, I was very bad at it, as you can tell. And then you improve as you work, because I became hooked on the technique. That's all I wanted to do.
But it was on the job training.
There was no training at the time, yes. We made our mistakes in the street. That no longer happens. We now have a training protocol.
Thank God.
But when I came through, there was none of that. So all these silly mistakes that I made, and some of them I could have been harmed or put in a bad spot.
Do you think they will recommend this for new trainees to read?
I train new trainees now, so
right.
I would assume that they're
your
satisfied.
Knowledge and what you learn by falling in the potholes on the highway
Yes.
of life are
Absolutely.
invaluable, because one thing, a lot of people don't live through it to write it down or to teach it to others.
I tell people, when I train new undercover agents, I tell them you learn more from failure than success.
Yeah, well, that's always true.
And that's such is life.
Yeah, and you remember, I often think that's why God makes us make mistakes, so we learn quicker and we don't do it again the second time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And pressure from the top, one of the last NDURE, when they changed the administration and they put young upstarts who'd never stepped out on a sidewalk in charge of your whole unit. That wasn't a pleasant experience.
That was not a pleasant experience, but I don't dwell on it. I knew eventually it would happen because that's just the way the FBI works. But I would prefer to remember, I tell people all the time, I had thousands and thousands of good days and just a few bad days, and those were some of the few bad days, but they're far surpassed by the good days that we had.
But again, you stuck to your core beliefs, and you stood them down.
I resigned.
Yep.
Right, because
the first time.
Oh, I resigned twice. That's right. I resigned twice. They wouldn't let me resign the first time, and then the second time, when I saw that nothing would change, you know, by my principles, I had to resign, and I did the next day.
Now, we are very grateful that we aren't growing up in the time that our own children are growing up in now. Would you want to be an FBI agent today?
So my dad was a cop, my grandfather was a cop,
and
now
were
my
a
son,
cop
I was a cop,
right?
and my son is now a cop.
Wow.
So we were the blue bloods before there were blue bloods.
In New York?
My son?
In New York?
In New York, yeah.
Wow.
No, we're from Massachusetts, but my son is now in law enforcement. I've never pressured him to join the FBI, nor have I dissuaded him. I leave that up to him. And right now, he has no interest. He loves what he's doing as a street cop. Again, the FBI has changed dramatically, obviously, from when I first started back in the 80s. And now, even though you want people with advanced degrees and certain skill sets, the greatest trait of any FBI agent is the ability to relate to other people.
And street smarts.
Yeah. Well, if you can't talk to somebody, then you're not going to be successful at the job, period.
No,
you can't communicate, you can't arrest a computer.
No, but you have to have a certain intuitiveness as to who to talk to. And you say, I think you teach the trainees, you step in and tell them with body language and command of your presence that you're the boss, not them.
Well, there's also ways, I refer to in the book to the Cesar Millan technique, which is a favorite dog show of mine, but Cesar Millan would show how to control animals without them understanding it. And I adopted a lot of those techniques with human beings, and they work.
They do.
Yes,
they do. And it's amazing. The human beings don't even know that they're following their lead, but I think it's because so seldom do they get to meet a strong individual who has a commanding presence.
There's a certain psychological mindset where you have to take that control without them understanding you're doing that, because just like most FBI agents, most criminals are type A personalities, and there's a war going on between the two sides until one of you establishes command and control. And there's ways to do that without them understanding it until it's too late.
Well, I'm grateful you never wound up in the trunk of a car with bullet holes.
Me too.
In you. What was the worst ever that you really thought you were going to meet your end?
Again, I'm going back to one of the book chapters. I talk about when I was doing a LCN, a La Cosa Nostra Mafia case, and I had been working these guys for a number of months. I had bought cocaine from them, and we were finishing the case when I was told that they may have figured out that I was an undercover agent. And myself and the case agent argued with our superiors that I could go back as long as I didn't go inside the building.
I remember that, yeah.
Yep. So I did go back, and I tried to do it outside, but that was the day they invited me into the club, and then once I got into the club, they said, we need to go down into the basement. Okay, so that's not a good day for
No,
an
that's
FBI
not
agent.
where you want to go.
And I tell the story, if you remember, I tell the story that as I went down into the basement of a social club, thinking I might not go back out, the jukebox was playing, and it played Frank Sinatra's My Way, and that was my dad's only song I ever heard him sing in his life. So 25 years after his death, he was telling me I was going to get out of there alive, and I did.
Good.
It was the freakiest thing imaginable. It was the only song I ever heard him sing.
But that's faith and belief that you're not alone. And you always wore, whenever possible, your police necklace, which most of them didn't even know was a police necklace. And was it the final day when, just before they're all arrested, you always wore something that said FBI, like cufflinks?
Yes. When we arrested Guzman's executive board, Chapo's main players, there's a video of the last meeting, and Chapo's cousin comes in to greet me, and we exchange embraces, and you can see clearly on the video my FBI cufflinks. It's just a superstition I had.
But it worked.
I did it every time, and I'm still here, so it must have worked.
But inside the FBI, when they suggested that you had taken the drugs out of the lockup, that had to have been a very low point.
They did a lot more than suggested. They treated me as a criminal suspect. That's a large part of the beginning of the book. I made that seizure back in 94 or 92, I believe. It was 50 kilograms of heroin. It was valued at about almost $200 million. And it later was removed from the FBI evidence vault, and I was accused of doing that.
That
falsely.
had to have been a terribly low point.
It was the lowest point of my professional career.
But you didn't run,
I couldn't. I had a family and a wife to support.
and you stood your ground.
Well, I didn't do anything wrong, so I knew eventually they would figure that out, and that's why I devoted the rest of my career to making more cases to show them that they were wrong to believe that in the first place.
How long did it take between the accusation and catching the other guy that
About
did
4 to
it?
5 months.
Oh my God! What
Every
a
day.
long time.
I was interviewed about 30 times as a criminal. I had my Miranda rights read to me, which it was my job usually to read it to other people.
Ooh. Do you think that made you stronger
Absolutely.
and wiser with,
I became very
suspicious, I would think.
I became very cynical for the rest of my career.
Paranoid?
Not paranoid, because I didn't do anything wrong.
Good.
Now, they didn't know that or believe that, but I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong, and I made that clear to them when they asked me.
I'm glad you came out of it and you gave us, what we needed, and you never got the public acclamation.
Nor did I desire it. That's not, and people ask now, why am I doing this 30 years later? I'm doing this for two reasons. I'm doing it for my family, as I explained. I'm also doing it for current undercover agents who do this every day that nobody knows about, and we don't want to be known for it. I never opened my mouth for 30 years. Everything in this book has been through the court system. It's public record, but there are agents and police officers and state troopers who go out and do the same thing I did right now, and nobody's asking for, accolades or awards. They're doing what they believe is the right thing to do.
Do you think the bad guys are going to read it as a tutorial?
They're not going to get much information because I say on page 1, I'm not going to reveal any tradecraft, and I don't. Somebody that I arrested in this case and went to prison for 18 years asked me to sign his book and send it to him. And I wrote to him, no hard feelings, and sent it back. I wish him well. He's out of prison, and I hope he stays on the straight and narrow.
Wow. But again, applause. You could have been tempted many a time to go that way, and you were smart enough that you probably would have gotten away with it.
Well, I don't know about that, but I believe that I had an ethical compass that was established long before I was an FBI agent through my family and through other people. And I knew that there was a bright line you could never cross, and I never got close to it. I mean, well, I may have got close to it when I was portraying that I was a bad guy, but I knew clearly what I could and could not do, and it never blurred for me.
I'm glad. More power to you and your parents for the upbringing that they gave you.
Thank you.
Now tell me about the movie. That's got to be exciting.
Well, we'll see. I tell people all the time, so I retired in 2017 after 30 years of doing this, and for the last year and a half, all people want to talk about is the book and the movie, which I'm grateful for. The film rights have been optioned to Sylvester Stallone for a feature film, and I've been involved in that process now. But
Do you think he can grow your mustache?
no, I'm sure he can't. I'm sure he can't. But I tell people all the time, whatever happens post FBI is just gravy. This was the important stuff. This had value. This was meaningful to our community and our country. So movies and TV shows are, they're entertainment, which I'm fine with, but it's not like a big deal to me.
Okay, so you said you train. What else do you do with your spare time? What gives you an adrenaline rush now?
The best way I spend my time is retirement with my dogs, my golden retrievers.
Oh.
They don't talk back and they love you.
How many?
We're down to one now, but we're getting ready to possibly take in a rescue dog.
Nice, nice. Do you walk them, train them?
I walk them all day long. That's all we do. They need a lot of exercise.
Yes, they're a very...
But that's relaxing to me after the career that I had. We'll go out in the woods where it's quiet, and I can do it for hours. It's very peaceful now after having a hectic, chaotic schedule for so many years.
You were in the Burlington Public Library the other night. You're here today. Mm-hmm. Where else are you going, and how busy is your meet and greet schedule?
So this whole process, again, which I've never been through before.
Did you expect it?
I had no idea. I didn't know what to expect. I've been now, this is probably around anywhere 80 to 100 appearances for the book. I get to meet, it's interesting for me because after spending 30 years basically with just other FBI agents, I'm now meeting a lot of new people and interesting people, and I'm enjoying it. It's been fun. I go all over the country. I'm out in LA a lot. I'm in New York City quite a bit. Wherever they send me, I go.
Oh, they send you, or they picking up the tab? I've been told recently. Well, you're very lucky, because most of our authors are paying it all on their own.
Yeah, I guess I have a
Yeah, they must have tremendous faith in the book.
No, I've been around pretty much all over the country so far.
Where are you going from here?
My next trip is I'm doing a presentation in Los Angeles.
And you'll fly out there on their tab?
On their tab?
I hated flying into that airport. Oh, God. You come much too close to the rooftops of those houses. Close my eyes when we leave Boston, and I don't open them till I get off the plane. No. You're not interested in writing another book?
I have an interest. I've talked to publishers. Now that I'm published, they have a greater interest in your story. So I have obviously this is nonfiction, I have a fictional series in mind that I've toyed with, and I've started to talk to the publishers about it. Mm-hmm. And that's something I can spend some time on. It's not my priority right now, but I'm thinking about it.
Is the detective going to be named McGowan?
Nope. It's going to be named after it's an FBI agent, and his name is James Devon Shane, which is the names of my 3 children.
Oh, how nice. Excellent. We did a book recently, and it seemed very historical, so I looked up the name, and I couldn't get over how many people in the country had that exact same name. Mm-hmm. And this character was fictional. And so many of the authors, of all the books that are published, how many different titles can you come up with? Yep. But many books have similar. Now, I didn't find another one that was Ghost.
Well, there's Ghost books, but there's not Ghost my 30 years as an FBI undercover agent.
No.
So you're right, it's not, we didn't have trouble getting that title down.
Did you have anything to do with the cover design?
Nope. That was the publisher.
Okay, how did it feel when the first box came to the house, you opened the box and saw it there in print?
Again, it was a interesting feeling, and I now have become friends with other authors who I've appeared at presentations with, and we were mentioning earlier, this was my first attempt at writing a book, and it was published, so I've never got that rejection letter. Some very famous authors that I've met
wallpaper a room.
hundreds and hundreds of rejection. And you talk about perseverance. That's incredible. There's a well-known writer who I'm not going to name who told me recently that his book, which ended up being a #1 New York Times bestseller and later into a film, was rejected 39 times. So
Yeah,
I got lucky.
Yeah, I can tell you. Well, no, it's not only luck. Somebody, whoever read it, had to have an intuitiveness of it's good. And it's written well.
Thank you.
The young man that helped you put it together, he took your story and crafted it almost like the wicker or a basket. You know, every strand is woven in to connect with the other strand to make a holistic story that's
right. Ralph Pizzullo is my co-writer, and he's a professional writer. And when I turned in my material, the publisher said, basically, you have great content. We just now need to tie it together, and that's where Ralph came in.
And put it in and make it look nice. Did you have to cut anything out of it? How many pages did you submit?
Yeah, we reduced it quite a bit. When I wrote the original, I didn't even know that you can write a book proposal. I know that now, but I wrote 350 some odd pages, and probably about a quarter of that was removed just for publishing purposes.
Well, you're right up there with John Steinbeck. He never paid attention to the guys who thought they could write. I write, 20-mile run-on sentences, and my kids pull their hair out of their head, and I say, I'm right up there with John Steinbeck, leave me alone. We're soon going to break, and you're going to read us a portion so that our viewers know your style and how truthful and honestly it is written. Any of these public appearances that you didn't expect, do you freak out when you have to speak in front of a crowd?
No, I'm very comfortable in speaking. I used to do a lot of training. I'm comfortable. I don't get, this is just the way I'm wired. I don't get nervous pretty much about anything.
Good for you.
When they take my psychological exams, I show basically no stress. And that's just the way I've been all my life.
Apparently you're Irish.
I am.
That speaks volumes in itself. We're going to break now, and we'll be back with Mr. McGowan reading us a section of his book.
People often ask me about how the title came about, and I'll tell you very quickly. I was honored to receive an award in front of my colleagues one year, about 10 years before I retired, and this is what I wrote at the time. This is 10 years before my actual retirement. And I wrote, I work in a specialty area within the FBI, which by its very nature is secretive and whose success is recognized by the ability to remain unrecognized as an FBI agent. I'm not comfortable with being recognized. I much prefer to remain a ghost, a shadow hiding in the background. So that's the reason for the title, and then I'll just walk you through a quick passage here. This is a conversation between myself and a mafia member just prior to me meeting the mafia boss, and we're talking about law enforcement infiltrating organized crime. So Bobby is the bad guy, and then I'll identify myself. So Bobby says to me, he may say something, okay, and they may work out what they got to work out, because they will know how to talk to each other. Even I don't know all that. Me, my head's spinning, Bobby. Bobby, even I don't know all this. Me, that's between those two. Bobby, there's things I don't even know, because there's things I can't say to him. Do you understand? If he's a real made man, I can't. These things I can't say to him. Me, no, he's real. I'm telling you, I think what you'll find out. Bobby, I've seen real cops that are real too. Me, he's got to be good then. Bobby, how about the ones right inside? Me, inside where? Bobby, your organization, why, you don't think there's none in it? Sure there is. Me, there's cops inside your place. Bobby, not our place. We know there's none in ours because we know everybody in our circle. But there's other circles they get in. Look at Joe Pistone, what he did. Me, who's that? Bobby, what he did to those guys in New York. They got $1 million bounty on his head to kill him. He's a federal agent. He went in. Me, was that a movie? Bobby, it's a true story. Me, I didn't know that. Bobby, that's a true story. They were real people. That's a real story. Me, I didn't know that. I thought that was Hollywood. Bobby, no, that's true. Me, he got in with those guys? Bobby, oh yeah. Me, and they treated him like one of his own? Bobby, yeah. And nothing happened to him? Bobby, well, they got him out before something happened. He testified, and then they moved him, changed his name, witness protection, the whole thing. Me, what would they have done if they found out? Bobby, killed him. Me, who was he? Bobby, he's a federal agent. I mean, there's $1 million bounty on his head. Me, oh, I saw that on HBO one night. I didn't know it was a real story. Bobby, oh yeah, it's a true story. Me, how could that happen? Bobby, he portrayed himself on the street just like a guy. All you need is one guy. So that was a mafia member telling me what would happen if an FBI agent infiltrated their organization.
Mm-hmm. And what was the surprised look on his face when you arrested him?
He was not happy, and I went to court actually against him a year later, and he was still giving me the devil's eyes a year
Well, I would
later.
imagine so, and I hope it's a life sentence and he's not getting out soon.
He's still in prison. He got sentenced to, I believe it was 15 years in prison.
But you still have to be careful because they have pipelines from the prisons to outside.
Sure.
Do you ever get spooked?
No, I don't, because I tell people, I get asked that a lot at my appearances, and I basically tell them if I was going to be harmed or hurt, it probably would have happened while I was doing it, because I faced them in the street for years, and then I faced them in a courtroom for years. And now, truthfully, most of them are either in jail or dead.
Well, I hope that you stay undercover for the rest of your life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing what you did for all of us. Enjoy your semi-quasi retirement and good luck with the movie. I'll wait for it. And if you do the second book, will you bring it to us?
I will. You'll have a personalized copy.
Excellent. We'll hold you to that, or I'll send my agents after you. That's it. Off the Shelf, Books on Tour. The book is Ghost. My guest has been Michael McGowan, and it's been a pleasure. Bye now.